At the time when people were launching and flying, and for the first hour or two of their flight, they thought it was a relatively standard cross-country day, very unremarkable in every respect. The group split up into two, so Eva was actually at the rear end of the lead group, so the front runners in her group were already through the section of clouds before the clouds started to get really big and strong above their heads.
Gerald is now flying alongside Eva at the back of the lead gaggle.
I knew about the problem with the clouds, but in a race we try to find good thermals. So on this day our strategy was for our team to go between these clouds and to fly as long as possible.
50 meters to their right is 42-year-old He Zhongpin, a member of the national Chinese team.
Zhongpin had been flying since the 90s, and he was one of their senior pilots in the team, so the rest of the younger members of the team respected him. He was up there with the top pilots in the world, so he was right mixing it with them at that exact stage.
A handful of pilots have successfully navigated a course past the developing storm. A small cloud in front of Eva, Gerald and Zhongpin stands between them and clear skies.
It was clear that the lead group that Eva was in would be coming quite close to those larger clouds, and they'd be running a fine gauntlet between two of the larger cells.
The clouds were really black and big, and I started to get worried about it. I started to get concerned.
The two big clouds were growing really fast.
We could see that it's getting very dark, so we knew we are playing with the fire now. But in front of us, the sky was looking really nice with nice cumulus clouds.
Everybody was thinking, okay, we are fast enough to fly away from these clouds.
Being an XC Open, the pilots get to make their own decisions once they start flying. How you predict the weather to be is your own personal safety, and it can be the difference between life and death sometimes. So from the viewpoint of the pilots who were in the rear group, it was clear that up ahead there was a solid line of cloud developing. Most of the rear group elected to land at that stage.
Nach 50, 60 Kilometern wurde es mir einfach viel zu heiß in der Luft. Also meine Schwelle war erreicht, wo ich einfach dachte, jetzt wird es zu gefährlich. Und dann funkte ich Stefan an und sagte, mir wird es jetzt zu gefährlich, ich gehe jetzt runter. Und in dem Augenblick habe ich dann gar nicht mehr realisiert, wo Eva dann auch war. Aber kurz vorher war sie noch einen Kilometer vor mir.
As dozens of pilots start going to ground, the severity of the storm cell is becoming apparent.
The clouds were forming into very high clouds, and it started to rain. We knew there's a big difference between thunderstorms in mountain terrains and in flatlands, but actually at that time it was we underestimated it, of course.
We could see a very tall, towering cumulonimbus cloud just reaching its mature phase, where it was starting to develop very, very quickly, and some rain was just starting to appear on one corner of it.
I had a cloud in front of me. I knew I cannot pass below the cloud, otherwise I get sucked into the cloud with the thermal, so I decided to fly around.
On the flatlands around Manilla, storms normally develop slowly over a matter of hours. But today, the clouds are growing rapidly, forming a line of cumulonimbus cells. If these cells merge, they will create a severe thunderstorm. The developing small cloud the pilots are trying to fly around suddenly gets sucked into the larger clouds, creating a massive storm cell, now measuring 20 kilometers wide.
Eva, being at the back end of the lead group, would have seen the leaders flying away from her, and she was desperately trying to catch them, of course, to stay in contention. She would have seen a little bit of blue still ahead, but what she wouldn't have seen was how tall the clouds were and how dark and menacing they looked at that point. Because from where we were behind, we could see this tall towering stuff, and once you're underneath it, you can't quite tell. She wasn't alone, of course. She was with a few other very competitive pilots.
In paragliding competitions, you are focused on winning, you push the limits. You just forget your safety and your life. It's kind of adrenaline and emotions, you just focus.
For me, it was a race against time. I saw two Swiss pilots in front of me, I think about 500 meters. They flew between the clouds really fast, made it. They are flying out, and I remember that I tried the same. We were not fast enough. The two clouds started to growing up to one cloud. It was like the cloud catched me and there was no chance to get out of it.
The clouds came together to form one very large cloud, and when that occurred, it was basically game over for Eva and the other pilots with her. It was like a giant hoover sucking them up to great heights, and they couldn't do anything about it at that point.
Suddenly I hit very strong lift and it sucked me into the cloud.
You can feel all the area of the glider pulling you up, and I felt pressed in my harness and just going up very fast.
This phenomenon, known as cloud suck, is extreme lift due to a thermal at the base of towering cumulonimbus clouds. The taller the cloud, the greater the lift. At the center of the dreaded thunderstorm, this extremely strong updraft produces hail, rain, gale force winds, and cloud-to-cloud lightning.
My heart was beating because I knew that we are now in a big shit and we have to go down as fast as we can.
The pilots are forced to perform an emergency descent maneuver known as spiraling.
A full spiral dive, the glider points at the ground, pulling a lot of G-force. Your face starts to feel like it's going back, your arms become very heavy, and all the time your instruments are beeping at you like crazy, the GPS is going and your compass is going around in circles. And that, in effect, is a very hard position to hold as well, but they know if they release it, that they'll get sucked up even quicker.
I just couldn't manage, just physically. The power in the spiral is so strong that I almost black out.
That spiral dive can lead to descent rates in still air of around 20 metres a second, but the updraft itself would have been doing upwards of 30 or 40 metres per second when she got inside the cloud. So effectively she had no way to escape it whatsoever. She was stuck.
I saw Eva on the left side of my field of vision. She made the spiral for 1 or 2 minutes, but then the thermal was so strong that it was like a hand picked her up and took her out.
Moments later, Chinese pilot He Zhongpin is also sucked into the storm. Eva's friend Gerald continues to spiral to try to break out of the updraft.
Gerald didn't realise at the time, but when he popped out the side of the storm, he was very lucky. He was just on the edge of the big storm that sucked up Eva.
I got in a smaller thermal, then I had the chance. It was just a chance to go down. I was outside of the cloud. I saw the farm. I saw my landing field and I was sure that I can make it.
Landing near some old farm buildings, Gerald is forced to shelter from the fierce lightning storm.
I ran to the other pilot, to the shelter. The lightnings were so strong and the wind is blowing, and we realized that maybe we can have a problem with the lightnings. It was for me the biggest and the strongest thunderstorm that I ever saw. I was sure that Eva and the Chinese pilots will have a big problem. Maybe they will not be alive.